Hello, my name is Ariel. I love books and I love English. I also love sharing ideas with people. This is my story. This is the story of how I learned to think and talk in English. I want to tell you about my journey. I want to tell you about my practice. I also want to tell you about my channel. My channel name is Bookish English. On this channel, I share simple English stories and ideas. Many people think English is very difficult. Many people feel shy when they speak. I also felt the same in the beginning. But step by step, everything changed. Now I want to share my experience with you. You can read my story, you can learn with me. You can also start thinking and talking in English. One day I was sitting in a small cafe in my city. It was a quiet afternoon. I had a notebook and a cup of tea. I was trying to study English. I was reading a short story. The story was easy, but I still had problems. I understood some sentences, but I did not understand many words. I felt a little frustrated. I asked myself a question. Why is English still difficult for me? I have studied English for many years. I know grammar rules, I know many words, but when I want to speak, I feel slow. I translate every sentence in my head. First, I think in my native language. Then I try to change the sentence into English. This takes time. Sometimes the conversation ends before I say anything. While I was thinking about this problem, I heard two people talking at the next table. They were tourists. They were speaking English. Their conversation was simple and natural. They were laughing and enjoying their talk. I listened to them carefully. I realized something interesting. They were not using difficult words. Their sentences were short and clear. But they were speaking very easily. At that moment, an idea came to my mind. Maybe the problem is not grammar. Maybe the problem is thinking. I do not think in English. I only translate. This makes everything slow and difficult. I decided to try something new. I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence. The sentence was very simple. I wrote, I want to think in English. Then I wrote another sentence. I can speak simple English. Then I wrote another sentence. Simple English is enough for communication. I started reading my sentences aloud. At first it felt strange. I was sitting alone in a cafe and speaking quietly to myself. But I did not care. I wanted to practice. I wanted to improve. After some minutes, I tried something else. I started describing the things around me. I looked at the table and said, This table is small. It is brown. My tea is hot. The cafe is quiet. Two people are speaking English. The music is soft. My sentences were very short, but something interesting happened. I felt more relaxed. I was not translating. I was simply describing what I saw. I continued this exercise for 15 minutes. Then I closed my notebook and went home. But my mind was still thinking about English. While I was walking on the street, I tried the same exercise again. I looked at the street and said in my mind, The street is busy. A car is passing. A man is walking fast. The sky is blue. It was simple but powerful. For the first time, I felt that English was becoming natural. That evening, I had another idea. I decided to create a small video. I wanted to talk about my experience. I opened my camera and started recording. I said, "Hello everyone, my name is Ariel. Welcome to my channel Bookish English. Today I want to talk about thinking in English." My English was not perfect. Sometimes I paused. Sometimes I searched for words. But I finished the video. When I watched it again, I felt happy. I was speaking real English. The next day, I uploaded the video on my channel. I did not expect many people to watch it, but something surprising happened. Some people wrote comments. They said the video helped them. They also wanted to think in English. This gave me motivation. I realized I was not alone. Many people had the same problem. They knew English, but they could not speak easily. So I made a decision. Every day I would practice thinking in English. Every day I would speak simple sentences. And every day I would share something on my channel Bookish English. The next morning, I started my practice again. I woke up early. I looked at the window and said, "The sun is rising. The morning is fresh. I feel good today. I want to practice English." While I was making breakfast, I continued speaking. I am making tea. The water is boiling. The bread is warm. Today will be a good day. At first, the sentences were very basic, but they helped me a lot. I was training my brain. I was teaching my mind to think in English. Later that day, I went to the park. I sat on a bench and opened a small book. Reading was always helpful for me, but now I used reading in a new way. I read one sentence and then I spoke about it in my own words. For example, the book said, "The boy walked into the forest." Then I said my own sentences. The boy is walking. The forest is quiet. Maybe he feels curious. Maybe he feels nervous. This exercise was very interesting. I was not only reading, I was also creating sentences. While I was practicing this exercise, something unexpected happened. A young woman sat on the bench near me. She was reading a book in English. After some minutes, she looked at me and smiled. She asked, "Are you practicing English?" I felt a little shy, but I answered, "Yes, I am trying to think in English." She smiled again and said, "That is a great idea. Thinking in English is very powerful." We started talking. Her English was very good. She told me that she also learned English by practicing every day. She read books, she watched videos, and she spoke to herself in English. Our conversation was simple but meaningful. We spoke for about 20 minutes. When we said goodbye, I felt very happy. I realized something important. Simple English is enough to communicate. That day was special for me. I understood that learning English is not only about grammar, it is about using the language. It is about expressing ideas. It is about thinking and talking every day. From that day, my journey became more exciting. Every day, I discovered new ways to practice. Every day, I shared my experience on Bookish English. And slowly, something amazing started to happen. My mind was changing. English was no longer just a subject. English was becoming part of my thinking. But the biggest change happened 1 week later. Something happened that completely transformed my confidence. Something happened that showed me the real power of thinking and talking in English. Chapter 2. The power of thinking in English. After that day in the park, I started to feel different about English. Before that moment, English was only a subject for me. It was something inside books and lessons. But now English was becoming part of my daily life. I was not only studying it, I was using it. Every morning I continued my small habit. When I opened my eyes, I started thinking in English. I said simple sentences in my mind. Today is a new day. I feel calm. I want to practice English. I can improve step by step. These sentences were very simple, but they helped me a lot. They helped my brain wake up in English. At first, I could only think very short sentences. But after a few days, my sentences became longer. I started to describe my plans for the day. I will read a book today. I will record a video for my channel Bookish English. I will go outside and observe people. I will practice speaking English. When I walked outside, I continued my exercise. I looked at the street and described everything around me. A bus is stopping. 2 children are running. The weather is warm. The sky is bright. This exercise was becoming natural for me. Sometimes I did not even realize that I was thinking in English. My brain slowly started to accept English as a normal language for thinking. One afternoon, I went to a bookstore. I love bookstores because they are quiet and peaceful. I walked between the shelves and looked at many books. I picked up a simple English storybook. The story was easy and interesting. I sat in a chair and started reading. But this time I did not only read the story, I also spoke about it quietly. The story said, "A young man travels to another city to find a new life." After reading the sentence, I spoke softly. "The man is brave. He wants change. He is leaving his home. Maybe he feels nervous, but he is also excited." A few people in the bookstore looked at me for a moment, but I did not feel embarrassed. I knew I was practicing something important. While I was reading and speaking, I noticed another thing. I was not translating anymore. My mind was directly understanding the English sentences. This was a big step for me. Before this time, I always translated everything into my native language. Now the ideas were coming directly in English. That evening, I returned home and decided to record another video. I opened my camera and started speaking. "Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. Welcome back to my channel Bookish English. Today, I want to share something important. I want to talk about thinking in English. I explained my new practice. I told viewers how I describe the world around me in English. I told them how reading and speaking together helps the brain learn faster. My sentences were still simple, but my confidence was growing. After recording the video, I uploaded it. Then I waited. The next morning, I checked the comments. Many people had watched the video. Some people wrote messages. One comment said, "Ariel, your idea helped me a lot. I started thinking in English today." Another comment said, "I always translate in my head. I want to stop doing that. Your story gives me hope." Reading these messages made me very happy. I realized something important. My journey was not only my journey anymore. Many people were learning with me. That day, I decided to take my practice more seriously. I created a small daily routine. In the morning, I would think in English for 10 minutes. During the day, I would read for at least 30 minutes. In the evening, I would speak in English and record my ideas. This routine became part of my life. After some days, I noticed another improvement. My speaking speed was becoming faster. Before this time, I needed many seconds to create one sentence. Now, sentences were coming naturally. One afternoon, I went back to the park where I had met the young woman before. I sat on the same bench and opened my notebook. I started writing my thoughts in English. I wrote, "Thinking in English is like opening a new door. When the door opens, new ideas enter your mind. English becomes a living language." While I was writing, someone called my name. Ariel. I looked up and saw the same young woman from before. She smiled and sat on the bench. She asked, "Are you still practicing English every day?" I smiled and said yes. I told her about my routine and my channel Bookish English. She seemed interested. And she said that many people try to learn English, but they stop because they feel frustrated. I told her that I also felt frustrated in the past, but simple practice changed everything. We continued talking for a long time. Our conversation was natural and relaxed. Sometimes I searched for words, but it was not a big problem. I used simple sentences and she understood me. At one moment, she asked me an interesting question. She said, "Ariel, what do you think is the biggest secret to speaking English?" I thought for a moment, and then I answered, "The biggest secret is using the language every day. You must think in English. You must speak even when your sentences are simple. Communication is more important than perfection." She nodded and said that she agreed with me. Before leaving, she gave me a small suggestion. She said that I should try speaking English while walking. She explained that movement sometimes helps the brain think faster. I liked the idea. That evening, I tried her suggestion. I went for a long walk and spoke quietly while walking. I described everything I saw. The streetlights are bright. The night air is cool. A dog is barking. People are talking in a restaurant. This exercise felt very natural. It was like having a conversation with myself. While I was walking, I also started thinking about new ideas for my channel, Bookish English. I wanted to help people practice English in simple ways. I thought about making short lessons about thinking in English. I thought about sharing small stories with simple sentences. I thought about encouraging people to speak without fear. When I arrived home, I felt excited. My mind was full of ideas. I opened my notebook and wrote many plans. At that moment, I realized something powerful. Thinking in English was not only improving my language, it was also changing my creativity. I was becoming more expressive. I was becoming more confident. A few days later, something unexpected happened. I received a message from one of my viewers. The message said, "Hello, Ariel. My name is Daniel. I watch your videos on Bookish English. I have a question for you. How can I stop being afraid of speaking English with other people?" This message made me think deeply. I knew many learners had the same fear. I also had this fear before. I decided that my next step in this journey would be helping people overcome this fear. But I did not know that very soon I would face a situation that would test my own courage. a situation that would show me if I was really ready to talk in English with strangers. And that moment arrived sooner than I expected. Chapter 3. Speaking Without Fear. After I received the message from Daniel, I started thinking about fear. Many people want to learn English, but they are afraid to speak. They are afraid of making mistakes. They are afraid that other people will laugh at them. I understood this feeling very well because I also had the same fear in the past. I remembered many moments when I wanted to say something in English, but I stayed silent. My mind was full of grammar rules and vocabulary, but my mouth stayed quiet. That evening, I decided to record another video for my channel Bookish English. I wanted to talk about fear and confidence. I opened my camera and started speaking. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. Welcome back to Bookish English. Today, I want to talk about something very important. I want to talk about fear. Many English learners are afraid to speak, but fear is normal. Everyone feels fear when they learn something new. The important thing is to practice even when you feel nervous. When I finished recording the video, I felt satisfied. I believed the message was helpful, but I did not know that soon I would face a real situation where I needed to follow my own advice. The next day, I went to the city library. I like the library because it is a peaceful place. There are many books and many quiet corners where people can read and think. I walked through the shelves and looked for an English book. After some minutes, I found a simple novel and sat at a table. I started reading slowly and carefully. My practice was always the same. I read a sentence, and then I spoke about it quietly. The story was about a traveler who visits many countries and learns new languages. The story was interesting and inspiring. While I was reading, I noticed a group of people sitting at another table. They were speaking English. At first, I did not pay much attention, but after a few minutes, I realized something. They were discussing books. They were talking about stories and ideas. One of them was holding a book and explaining something. The conversation sounded interesting. I wanted to listen more carefully. After some time, one of the people in the group stood up and walked around the library. He looked at the bookshelves and finally stopped near my table. He looked at the book I was reading and smiled. He said, "That is a good book. I read it last year." For a moment, I felt nervous. My heart started beating faster. I understood his sentence, but I needed a few seconds to answer. In the past, I might have stayed silent, but now I remembered my practice. I remembered thinking in English every day, so I took a small breath and answered, "Yes, I like it. The story is simple but interesting." The man nodded and asked another question. "Are you studying English?" I smiled and said yes. I practice every day. I also have a small channel called Bookish English. I share my learning journey there. He looked curious and said that sounded interesting. Then he asked if I would like to join their discussion about books. At first I felt unsure. Joining a conversation with many people seemed difficult. But then I remembered the message from Daniel. I remembered my own advice about courage. I told myself that this was a perfect opportunity to practice, so I said yes. I walked to their table and sat with them. There were 4 people in the group. They all greeted me kindly. They asked my name, and I told them. My name is Ariel. I am learning English, and I love books. That is why I created my channel, Bookish English. The group welcomed me warmly. They continued their conversation about stories and reading. Sometimes they asked me questions. At first, my answers were short and simple. But after some minutes, I started feeling more comfortable. I explained why I enjoy reading simple English stories. I told them that simple sentences help learners understand ideas clearly. I also explained how reading helps people learn new words naturally. The conversation lasted for almost 1 hour. During that time, I spoke more English than I had ever spoken before in a real conversation. Sometimes I made mistakes. Sometimes I needed to pause and think. But nobody laughed. Nobody criticized me. Everyone listened patiently. At the end of the discussion, one of the people in the group said something that surprised me. He said, "Ariel, your English is very clear. You explain ideas in a simple way. That is a great skill for teaching." When I heard those words, I felt proud, but also surprised. For a long time, I believed my English was not good enough. But now someone was telling me that my simple English was actually helpful. That moment changed something inside my mind. After leaving the library, I walked slowly through the city streets. I was thinking about the conversation. I realized that fear becomes smaller when you face it. The first sentence is always the hardest, but after the first sentence, the conversation becomes easier. That evening, I recorded another video for Bookish English. This time, I shared my experience from the library. I explained how I joined a discussion with strangers. I told viewers that simple English is enough for communication. I also told them that mistakes are part of learning. After uploading the video, I felt very motivated. My confidence was growing every day. Thinking in English was helping me speak more naturally. But another interesting change was happening inside my mind. I started dreaming in English sometimes. It did not happen every night, but it happened a few times. When I woke up, I remembered that the people in my dream were speaking English. This experience showed me that English was slowly becoming part of my subconscious mind. My brain was accepting it as a normal language. A few days later, I received another message from Daniel. He wrote, "Ariel, I watched your video about fear. Yesterday I tried speaking English with a tourist in my city. I was nervous, but I did it. Thank you for the motivation." He wrote, "Ariel, I watched your video about fear. Yesterday I tried speaking English with a tourist in my city. I was nervous, but I did it. Thank you for the motivation." When I read his message, I felt very happy. Helping even one person gave my work meaning. My channel, Bookish English, was slowly becoming a small community of learners. People were sharing their experiences and encouraging each other. At that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would continue sharing my journey. I would continue showing people that English does not have to be complicated. Simple sentences, daily practice, thinking in English. These were the real keys. But my journey was still only beginning. Soon I would discover another powerful technique that would make my speaking even stronger. a technique that would help me organize my thoughts clearly when I speak. And this technique would come from an unexpected meeting with a teacher who loved books as much as I did. Chapter 4. Learning to Organize Thoughts in English. After my experience in the library, I felt more confident than before. Speaking with the group about books showed me something important. Simple English can still carry strong ideas. I did not use complicated words during the discussion, but people understood me. They listened carefully, and they respected my opinions. This realization stayed in my mind for many days. I continued my daily routine. Every morning I thought in English. Every afternoon I read simple stories. Every evening I spoke about my day and shared my ideas on my channel Bookish English. My progress was steady, but I noticed one small problem. Sometimes when I wanted to explain a bigger idea, my sentences became confused. I had the words in my mind, but I was not sure how to organize them clearly. I could describe simple things easily, but when the topic became deeper, my thoughts became messy. I knew I needed a way to organize my ideas when I spoke English. One afternoon, I returned to the same library again. The library was slowly becoming my favorite place for practice. I walked between the shelves and picked up a book about communication. The title of the book was simple but interesting. It talked about how people express ideas clearly. I sat at my usual table and started reading. The first chapter explained that good communication is not only about vocabulary, it is also about structure. When people speak clearly, they usually follow a simple order. First, they introduce the idea. Then they explain the idea. Finally, they give an example. This structure helps listeners understand easily. I liked this idea very much. It seemed simple and practical. I decided to try it immediately. I looked around the library and thought about a topic. The topic was reading books. I quietly started speaking to myself. Reading books is very helpful for language learners. That was my introduction. Then I continued. When people read books, they see many examples of sentences and vocabulary. This helps the brain understand how the language works. That was my explanation. Then I finished with an example. For example, I read simple stories every day, and they helped me learn new words naturally. The structure worked very well. My sentences felt clearer. My ideas were easier to express. I wrote this small technique in my notebook. I called it the simple idea structure. While I was writing in my notebook, an older man approached my table. He had a calm face and kind eyes. He looked at my notebook and smiled politely. He asked if I was studying English. I answered yes, and told him that I practice speaking every day. He seemed interested and asked why I write many small sentences in my notebook. I explained my learning journey and also told him about my channel Bookish English. The man listened carefully and then introduced himself. He said his name was Mr. Howard. He told me that he was a retired teacher. For many years, he had taught literature and communication. When I heard this, I felt curious and excited. I asked him if he had any advice for someone who wants to improve speaking skills. Mr. Howard sat down and thought for a moment. Then he said something that stayed in my mind. He said that speaking clearly is like telling a small story. Every idea should have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. The beginning introduces the idea. The middle explains it. The ending shows why it matters. This simple structure helps the listener follow the message easily. I told him about the technique I had just discovered in the book. He smiled and said that I was already thinking in the right direction. Then he suggested another exercise. He said I should choose one simple topic every day and speak about it for 2 minutes using the same structure. First, introduce the idea, then explain it, then give an example from real life. I liked the suggestion very much. It sounded like a perfect exercise for my daily practice. Before leaving the library, Mr. Howard gave me one more piece of advice. He said that communication is not about sounding perfect. Communication is about sharing ideas clearly and honestly. When you focus on your message instead of your mistakes, people listen to you with more interest. That evening, I went home and decided to try the new exercise. I turned on my camera and prepared a new video for Bookish English. My topic was daily English practice. I followed the structure that Mr. Howard had explained. I started with the introduction. Daily practice is very important when you learn English. Then I explained the idea. When people practice a little every day, their brain becomes familiar with the language. Small practice is stronger than long practice once a week. Then I finished with an example. For example, I spend time every morning thinking in English, and this simple habit helps me improve slowly. When I watched the video again, I noticed something interesting. My speech sounded more organized. My ideas were clearer. I was not jumping from one thought to another. The structure helped my message flow naturally. After uploading the video, I went for a short walk in the evening. While walking, I continued practicing the same technique. I chose small topics around me. The park is a peaceful place. That was the introduction. People come here to relax and enjoy fresh air. That was the explanation. For example, I come here to think and practice English. That was the example. This exercise felt very natural. It helped me think and speak at the same time. I realized that thinking in English was only the first step. Organizing ideas in English was the next important step. Over the next few days, I practiced this structure many times. Sometimes I spoke about books. Sometimes I spoke about learning languages. Sometimes I spoke about motivation and confidence. Each time I followed the same pattern. Introduction, explanation, example. Slowly, my speaking became smoother and more confident. 1 week later, something surprising happened again. I received an email from a viewer of Bookish English. The email came from a language club in the city. They wrote that they had watched some of my videos. They liked my simple explanations. They asked if I would like to visit their club and share my experience about learning English. When I read the email, my heart started beating faster. Speaking in front of many people sounded exciting, but also a little scary. I had spoken with individuals and small groups before, but speaking to a room full of learners was a completely different challenge. For a few minutes, I felt nervous. But then I remembered everything I had learned during my journey, thinking in English, speaking every day, using simple sentences, organizing ideas clearly. All these skills had prepared me for moments like this. I looked at my notebook and wrote one sentence. I can do this. Simple English is enough. At that moment, I knew that my next step was waiting for me. Soon, I would stand in front of many learners and share my story. Soon, I would discover whether my practice was strong enough for a real presentation. And this experience would become one of the most important moments in my journey with English and with my channel, Bookish English. Chapter 5. Speaking to inspire others. When I finished reading the email from the language club, I felt many emotions at the same time. I felt excited because someone had noticed my work on Bookish English. But I also felt nervous because speaking in front of many people seemed difficult. I had never given a real presentation in English before. I closed my laptop and sat quietly for a few minutes. I looked at my notebook and read the sentence I had written earlier. I can do this. Simple English is enough. These words gave me courage. I decided to accept the invitation. I wrote a short reply to the club and thanked them for the opportunity. I told them that I would be happy to visit and share my experience. After sending the message, I took a deep breath. A new challenge was waiting for me. During the next few days, I started preparing for the presentation. I remembered the advice from Mr. Howard about organizing ideas clearly. I decided to follow the same structure for my talk. First, I would introduce my story. Then, I would explain the techniques that helped me improve. Finally, I would share simple examples that learners could use in their daily life. I opened my notebook and started writing my ideas. My first idea was about thinking in English. I wrote, "Thinking in English helps your brain become faster. When you stop translating, you can speak more naturally." Then I wrote about reading. Reading simple stories helps you learn new words and sentence patterns. Then I wrote about speaking every day. Speaking even when you are alone helps you build confidence. I continued writing until I had a clear outline for my presentation. Every evening, I practiced speaking aloud in my room. I stood in front of a mirror and imagined that people were sitting in front of me. I started my presentation many times. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. Welcome to my small story about learning English. My channel is called Bookish English, and I love sharing simple ways to learn. At first, my voice sounded a little nervous, but after repeating the presentation many times, my confidence slowly grew stronger. I also used the shadowing technique that I had learned before. I listened to some short speeches online and repeated the sentences after the speaker. This exercise helped me improve my pronunciation and rhythm. One afternoon, I visited the park again to practice my presentation while walking. The park was quiet and peaceful. I walked slowly along the path and spoke aloud. I imagined that the trees were my audience. I explained how thinking in English changed my learning journey. I explained how reading simple stories helped me understand sentence patterns. I explained how speaking every day removed my fear. The more I practiced, the more natural my speech became. A few days later, the day of the presentation finally arrived. The language club was located in a community center in the city. When I arrived at the building, I felt my heart beating faster again. I took a deep breath and reminded myself of my practice. I had spoken English every day. I had shared my ideas on bookish English. This moment was simply another conversation. Inside the room, I saw about 20 people sitting on chairs. Some of them were young students, and some were adults. They all looked curious and friendly. One of the organizers welcomed me and introduced me to the group. Then he invited me to stand in front of the room and begin my talk. For a few seconds, I felt nervous. But then I looked at the audience and smiled. I started with a simple sentence. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel. I am not a perfect English speaker. I am just a learner like you. But today, I want to share something that changed my life. The room became quiet, and everyone listened carefully. I continued speaking. I told them about my early struggles with English. I explained how I used to translate every sentence in my head. I described the moment in the cafe when I realized that thinking in English could help me speak more naturally. I shared the small exercises that I used every day. I described how I looked at the world around me and created simple English sentences. I told them how reading simple stories helped me understand how sentences work together. Then I explained another important idea. I told them that fear is the biggest obstacle for many learners. I said that many people wait until their English becomes perfect before they speak. But perfection is not necessary for communication. Simple sentences are enough to express ideas. When I finished explaining this idea, I gave them an example. I told them about my conversation in the library with the group of readers. I explained how I used simple English but still enjoyed a meaningful discussion. The audience listened with great attention. Some people nodded while I spoke. I could see that many of them recognized their own struggles in my story. This made me feel more comfortable. My voice became stronger, and my sentences flowed more naturally. After about 20 minutes, I finished my presentation with a simple message. I said that learning English is not about memorizing thousands of words. It is about using the language every day. Think in English. Read simple stories. Speak even when you feel nervous. These small actions can create big progress over time. When I finished speaking, the room was silent for a moment. Then the audience started clapping. The sound of their applause surprised me and made me smile. I felt proud and grateful at the same time. After the applause, several people raised their hands and asked questions. One student asked how long it took for me to start thinking in English naturally. Another person asked how to stay motivated during difficult moments. I answered each question with simple and honest explanations. I told them that progress takes time, but daily practice always brings results. After the session, many people came to talk with me personally. Some thanked me for sharing my story. Others said they wanted to start thinking in English from that day. One young student said that my story gave him courage to speak more often. Hearing these words made me very happy. I realized that my journey was helping other people find their own path. When I returned home that evening, I sat at my desk and reflected on the experience. I remembered how nervous I had felt at the beginning of my English journey. I remembered the moment in the cafe when I started speaking simple sentences to myself. Step by step, those small practices had led me to this moment. I had just spoken English in front of many people and shared my ideas confidently. That night, I recorded another video for Bookish English. In the video, I shared the story of the language club presentation. I explained how preparation and daily practice helped me overcome fear. I encouraged viewers to create their own small speaking opportunities. As I finished recording, I realized something important. My journey with English was still continuing. Every day brought a new lesson and a new opportunity to grow. And somewhere in the future, another experience was waiting for me. An experience that would show me how powerful the habit of thinking and talking in English could truly become.